everyone, my name is Tiara, aka Bookworm Babe, and welcome back to my channel. Today we are going to be doing my February wrap-up. I had some honestly amazing books in this last month of reading, and I'm so excited to talk about all of them. I originally had a list of 5 books I wanted to get through for February. I tried to kind of create a bit of a reading list for myself for the month, but unfortunately I didn't end up getting through all of the books. I didn't get through the last 2, so I'm kind of just going to push them back and, you know, hopefully include them in another list down the line, I'm hoping. But for now, today, I'm gonna just continue to share with you guys the 3 that I read and basically just tell you about how awesome they were, because honest to God, they were great. So let's not wait any longer and jump right into it. The first book that I read during February is Concrete Rose, and this is by Angie Thomas. So here is a look at the book, back and front. This was a signed first edition, so I think it was, yeah, it was this page, has it signed, which I thought was really cool. This was a new release, and I think it actually did come out maybe January, middle of January, I'm not sure, and they had it on sale on Indigo, so I was excited. I had a gift card and I bought it. Pretty simple, right? But I honestly couldn't put this book down, so let me tell you about it. The book follows our main character. His name is Maverick. He's a 17-year-old boy. He's in high school, and he comes from a lineage that is very gang related. His father was a kingpin, but unfortunately he is in jail, and his best friend, his father, same thing. They were basically like a team, so they're both very well known, and they're the juniors to these 2 men who they basically have their own legacy, right? And so Maverick is, you know, he's in the gang. He's not necessarily, you know, kingpinning the way his father was, but he's a part of it. And nonetheless, so the book starts off with just a regular day. He's playing basketball, he's hanging out with his girlfriend, his friends and everything, when he gets this call, and that's where our drama starts. So basically, Maverick's best friend's son is not his son. It's Maverick's son. You know, after one night that kind of went a little weird, and they were both sort of dealing with this one girl, and it resulted in the girl having a baby, which they thought was King's, but it wasn't. It turns out it was Maverick's. So right away, Maverick is, you know, taken out of his kind of fun world of being a teenager and thrown into fatherhood, when the mother of the child basically just leaves the baby with him because she can't handle it any longer, and she really needs a break because she's having a very hard time on top of everything else. So Maverick has a son all of a sudden, and he has no clue how to adapt to this. On top of that, a baby means money, and Maverick has his side hustle going that with his best friend King, but his cousin doesn't really want him to continue doing those things, especially after he finds out about the baby. So he tries to do his best to kind of work a regular job, maintain his grades, do the whole thing, but after a while it just basically ends up being too much for him, and he knows he basically has to get back into the game, or else how is he gonna pay, how is he gonna help his mom with bills, how is he going to pay for his son? And on top of that, all of that, let's not forget he has a girlfriend. He did have to tell her that obviously he's a father now, there's this baby that's, you know, his responsibility, and obviously it doesn't go well for them. Things only continue to get stickier. I don't want to spoil too much because I feel like there's really important parts in this book that you just, I can't reveal them in this plot. You just have to read it. But, you know, he does lose somebody very close to him. He does end up dealing with even more sticky situations that he has to kind of navigate and make his way around, all while trying to adapt to being a father at 17, thinking about his future and trying to figure out who he is as a man, you know, because he's basically always been living in his father's kind of image, his father's legacy, but he's becoming his own person, his own, you know, character, his own man, and he kind of begins to break away from what he's always thought and expected to be from himself, and he starts to become who he wants to be and starts to think more about his own future away from what everyone's always expected of him. So there's a lot of exploration, a lot of hardships, a lot of really funny moments too, and cute moments, and just I really like the character arc here, because we really see Maverick go from one place of being obviously very like an immature young kid, and then turning into this adult so quickly, and you know, having to mature and take on responsibilities. Also, if any of you guys have read, I think it's called Star. No, it's not Star. That's the girl's name. I think if you guys have read The Hate U Give, this is supposed to be the prequel. So Star's father is Maverick, and this is Maverick's pre-story leading up to obviously later on when you read The Hate U Give. I haven't read The Hate U Give yet, which I think is a good thing, because I started with this and I can move on to that one after, and I like having that like pre-context. But nonetheless, this was a 5 out of 5 for me. It was amazing. Next book that I read is called Leaving Atlanta, and this is by Tayari Jones. Leaving Atlanta is my second Tayari Jones book. The first one I read was last summer. I read An American Marriage, and I really did like that one, but I do think this was way better than American Marriage. This book was honestly insane, and I really liked it. So basically it follows 3 different characters, and the book is split into 3 parts. So our first perspective is from Tasha Baxter, our second perspective Rodney Green, and our last Octavia Harrison. So these 3 characters are grade 5 students living in Atlanta. It is the very late 70s, so like 79 to like, no, actually, yeah, I think it's 1979, sorry. But basically, it takes place during a time where the Atlanta child murders was going on. And if you guys are not familiar with it, just to give you a very quick idea, it was over the course of 2 years, so from like 79 to like 1981 or 82, I think. This time, 29 Black children in Atlanta had gone missing and were found murdered. It was a very dark time, a very scary time, and these 3 kids are, you know, growing up, coming into their, you know, older childhood, you know, middle adolescent years, I guess you can call it, in this time where, you know, their parents are so freaked out over everything that's happening, and they're all dealing with their own inner struggles. Like, Tasha's dealing with trying to fit in with her friends. Rodney is kind of this odd kid out, and he doesn't really have friends or anything, or talk to anyone, and people think he's kind of like the weird kid, and he has a very strange dynamic at home as well. Octavia kind of has the same thing, you know, she's home with a single mother, and she has had like complications with her family as well, and it's the same thing. People make fun of her all the time at school because she's very dark-skinned, doesn't have any friends, she sits alone. So we see each character's personal struggles just due to their age being 10 years old, and then on top of that, just the fear that comes with these kids being in this era where they're like, you know, my parents are afraid of me, you know, and my siblings getting kidnapped or something happening to us and whatever. So all of a sudden their after school lives, before school lives are changing, because there's a huge fear in the community over what is going on in this situation. So because this was based on like a real live event that happened, and then obviously the characters are fictional, but you know, it's kind of mixing that real life with like the fictional characters, I really love that, because I love anything to do with history, historical fiction, things like that. But I also obviously love fiction, so having made up characters but giving them, you know, a very real struggle, a very real problem, I really like the fact that Tayari did that, and I think she handled it really well, and also really gave a sense of what was going on during this time. She really painted the picture of like this fear in the community, the way the kids were feeling, and also just, again, like the childhood struggles, you know. If we all remember being 10 years old, it's fun, but it's also a weird time. You know, you're trying to fit in, you're starting to get older, you might want to start like looking a little, you know, you're less of a kid and you want to start looking kind of cute, and then things are awkward, kids are mean to each other all the time. We all have our growing pains that we deal with, and on top of that, when you have like your family life and things going on in your family, it just kind of adds to the stickiness of everything. So this was a 5 out of 5 for me. I very much enjoyed it, and it was extremely well written, so like developed in terms of the characters and the plot, and there were very surprising moments in there as well, very emotional moments. And again, because it was, the characters might have been fake, but they're based on real things that happened. So you can only imagine at, like, you know, the actual time that this was going on in the late 70s, early 80s, what kids were feeling like, what parents were feeling like, and what the atmosphere is like. And I think the book did an absolutely great job at portraying all of that. So like I said, I would highly recommend reading this if you're interested in something along these lines. Last book that I read during February, and this one did take me a while to finish, but it was, oh my gosh, it was such a journey. So this is Song of Solomon, and this is by Toni Morrison. This is the book. I had bought this off somebody like last year secondhand, right? Because I had bought like a whole lot of Toni Morrison books, and I finally got to this one. Oh my gosh, it was an experience. That's probably the best way to describe what reading this book was like. It was an experience. So the way it starts off is it's kind of strange. There's, you know, a man on the roof of a hospital, and he's trying to say that he's gonna like jump off and fly. Very, like, you're kind of like, what? Like, what is going on, right? And then we're introduced to some of the main characters of the book without kind of knowing that you're introduced to the main characters, if that makes sense. And right away, at first, I felt like it was a bit of a slow beginning. So I wasn't sure where the story was going. I wasn't sure the direction, obviously. And truthfully, I was kind of feeling like, oh my gosh, am I like not gonna like this book? And you know, like, I've read 2 of Toni Morrison's books already, and I do still have like more of her books that I haven't read as of yet, but the past 2 that I read I really enjoyed. So I was like super weary, like, oh my gosh, like, I don't want to not like this book. Like, I loved her last 2 books, so I don't want to not like this book. So, but this is one of those books that you have to kind of buckle down with and just follow the story, follow the trail. So our main character in the book is Milkman, whose real name is Mason Dead, the third, because his father is Mason Dead and his grandfather was Mason Dead. We start off with, you know, Milkman's childhood, slowly move into his teenage years until we reach his adulthood point, and then the story really begins to take off. But everything we learn prior to that gives us our context to, you know, everything we need to kind of know for his adulthood character. As well, we learn how Milkman gets his nickname, Milkman. I'm not gonna say with how that goes. I'm definitely gonna leave that for you guys to read. But basically, you know, Milkman's family dynamic is very strange. He has 2 sisters, and obviously his parents relationship is not at all a normal relationship. They pretty much hate each other, but they're together. His mom is the daughter of one of the only like notable black doctors that ever lived in the area where they live in. So there's this legacy on that side. His father owns a number of properties and manages them. So the family is very well to do, which again is uncommon for the times because it starts off in like the 1930s, 40s. So to have a black family who is, you know, so well known and well to do, they were one of the few who were privileged to those things. As we move into Milkman's adulthood, we again see how everything from his past has played into his future. All of the women in his life are pretty much his pillars. His mom, his sisters, his aunt, his cousin, all very integral to him. His father's sister, his aunt, her name is Pilate. They again have a very odd and very estranged relationship. You know, his father admired her when they were kids, and they became separated due to a number of reasons, and it really cut off the relationship. And there was a specific event that made the father really change his perspective of her and have this like dislike for her, but I'm not gonna tell you guys what that is. So Milkman is very immature. He's like 32 and he's stuck in this place where he just wants to, you know, have fun and party and kind of like meet girls but not really settle down. And he sort of had a relationship with his cousin Hagar, but eventually he kind of breaks her heart, and when he does, she goes into the most insane like fit of anger and sadness, and it ultimately leads to a lot of other separate events. But as Milkman is kind of moving through this journey and discovering more about the world around him, you know, his best friend Guitar, who is a very integral character as well, and their relationship also has a lot of really important moments that help build the story. He discloses something to Milkman that really shakes up his world, because he really starts to open his eyes to what's going on around him. As he begins to learn more about, you know, his world, his family, you know, the events that he wasn't always privileged to knowing about before, the story about like his mom and his dad and his aunt and stuff like that, he ends up on this journey to go back to like his father's hometown and learn about his family, his heritage, where their name came from. He knows slightly, but he really wants to dig more. So it takes him back, you know, they're in the South as well. It takes him back to all of these other places, and he meets all these people who knew of his family, knew of their name, knew of like the lineage behind his great-grandparents and stuff, and how they got together, how a whole bunch of events happened. Also really learns the hard way about certain things, which in a way you're kind of glad to see, because it's almost like he needs that. He needs someone to kind of like kick his can and like give him, that's so corny, I don't know why I said kick his can, I'm sorry. But you know, like he kind of needs someone to give him that like push, that kick, and like not be so soft with him as what he's used to. Aside from Milkman being our main character though, we still get to explore the perspectives of his mother, his sisters, his Aunt Pilate, you know, Hagar, all of those things. So we get to see those inner feelings of everyone else, their backstories, even though the story isn't told from, you know, their literal points of views, but we get to kind of get an idea of where everyone stands throughout the story. And alongside of that, there's a lot of commentary on, you know, the time period, being black in, you know, in America in like the 30s, 40s, 50s, into the 60s as well. They mention like Emmett Till in there as well. So racism is obviously like a thing that's going on and a theme that's going on. There's also the theme of, you know, the wealth gap and like families who were able to, you know, gain wealth versus those who were still struggling, and the way people viewed that. There's also exploration of your family, your heritage, where you come from, learning about home, and eventually kind of learning how to spread your wings and fly, which is a huge thing in here as well. But overall, I loved the way the characters were developed, and I loved all the insights, the metaphors, just the way everything was woven into this beautiful tapestry of a story. And in a way, it ended up being so beautiful and tragic all at the same time, if that makes sense. But like I had said in the beginning, this book is an experience, and you honestly have to read it in order to truly get everything. And I think especially for me, who like, I'm so big on learning about like ancestry, heritage, culture, you know, where I come from in terms of my own like roots and culture, this was a book that in a sense like I could really connect to, even though, you know, it was different eras, different people, genders, all those things. You know, you understand the need that somebody has to kind of get to the bottom of things and find out where they came from, put together all the puzzle pieces of our lives and the stories and just everything that happened before us and all the things that we see unfold as we're here. So again, like I totally loved it. It was a book that took me by surprise, and it was like honestly like a 10 out of 5. Like I loved it so much, and I get like hands down Toni Morrison is just one of my favorite authors without a doubt, and I can't wait, like I honestly can't wait to get through the rest of her books that I have, because I just like, especially after I read Song of Solomon, it had such a different tone than the last 2 books that I read, and like her approach in writing it, and I really want to see more of this style of writing from her too, because I kind of really like that slow unfolding of everything, and towards the end it just all links together and weaves all those points in, and you start to connect the dots, and it's probably the most fun feeling ever. So Toni Morrison, guys, that's it. That's all I gotta say. That is all for me today. I know it was only 3 books, and I still ended up making this video like pretty long. I thought it would be a shorter one, considering again it was only 3 books, but there was so much in each of these books that I really enjoyed, and I'm really so glad that I was able to take the time to share them today. So do let me know in the comments if you guys have read any of these books. Let me know if you're gonna pick them up, what your thoughts are. They were all so fantastic. So I will see you guys all next week in my next video, and stay safe and take care. Bye!